I do think that I was trying to think about the booker and what I know about the booker. So I've added books to this list that are not books. Bad intro, forget it. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the heavy hitters on my predictions list. So I got really excited the last, I don't know, 3 hours or so. I realized, hey, I realized, hey, I can make a booker prediction video. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess. Thought it would be really fun to do a booker predictions video. I've never done a booker prediction video before, but it's a year of firsts for me when it comes to the prizes. I talked about this a little bit in my goals video and how am I doing with my goals, and I realized upon reflection, I did make a prediction video for the women's prize long list, and actually I got 5 of those predictions right. And I really was just going on instinct. And I know that there are a lot of different methods and ways to make these booker predictions. I know that some of us booktubers are very scientific about our approaches and some are less so. I just decided that my approach would be, I don't know if I want to say sensible because I don't want to make it sound like I'm bragging or something, but my approach has been the sensible, practical slash instinctual slash hopeful approach. A lot of these books that are on the list that I've put together are books that I haven't yet read, which is not a big surprise. Not just because I read a wide range of books, but I don't have access to a lot of these books when they first come out, particularly because some of them are put out first in other countries. I don't think I need to give too much of a preamble of what was my thinking about this. It's just to say that quite a few of the books I haven't read yet, so I can't really talk about them at any length. I just have an instinct that they might be chosen. I have a couple of wild cards, a few debuts, and some what I call heavy hitters. So 3 categories: the heavy hitters, the debut novels, and then some wild cards that I just instinctually put on my list, but the likelihood is low that they will be there. I am really hoping that none of the books on my prediction list are ineligible. That happened to me when I did predictions for the women's prize long list, and I'm really hoping that doesn't happen again. If it does, just a little disclaimer, I apologize in advance. The way that I went about choosing was that I looked at the list on Goodreads. There's a Goodreads list of 169 books that are supposed to be eligible for the booker, and then I went through that list and decided from there which ones I thought had a good possibility of being there, mostly from what I've heard and mostly from, as I said, my instincts. I'm not sure how good my instincts are, but I guess we're gonna find out. Just in terms of the rules for the Booker Prize, the Booker judges will select 12 to 13 books. I've put 13 books on my list, and I actually had a difficult time narrowing it down to 13 because it's hard to choose when you get down to the last 3 or 4 that you want to add. I have a good solid, I would say, 10 that I'm happy with, and then from there I wasn't sure what to add in. They are books that need to have been published in England or Ireland from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 30 days have September, April, June, yeah, 30th of September 2024. And they have to have been published in English, so they're not a translated work. Of course, the Booker has the International Booker Prize, which is where translated works are selected. I'm going to start out with the heavy hitters on my predictions list. The first one, and the one that I think it would be sad if this didn't win. I would be very personally offended and upset if this book didn't win. And I think everybody knows what I'm about to say, is James by Percival Everett. This book, I even bought it in hardback. So for those of you who know, I don't usually buy books in hardback. Just finished it for my book club, had a great discussion about it in a book club. I had read Percival Everett's The Trees last year. I will leave a link to my review in the description box below, and I thought it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed James as well, and I will be talking about it in my wrap-up, which is coming very shortly. His book, The Trees, was shortlisted. So I feel like it's his year. Like if he doesn't get get this acknowledgement. I think I'll be quite upset because the man is a genius. I'm sure everybody watching knows that James is not a retelling, but really, I guess, he uses the story of Huckleberry Finn, the character Jim from Huckleberry Finn, as a jumping off point for telling that character's story. So I'm not sure what the term would be for that. A prequel, a sequel, a side, I don't know. But anyway, this is my first pick and it's my hopeful for the winner. I really hope that James wins this year. If it's not on the long list, I don't know. I won't even be participating in the book or in the future. I mean, I don't like to make empty threats, but it feels wrong if James is not going to be on that list. So my next pick in the heavy hitters department is My Friends by Hisham Mattar. Hisham Mattar is a Libyan British author, and his book that won the Pulitzer Prize is about his experience returning, well, it was inspired by him returning to Libya to find out about the disappearance of his father. Eric Carl Anderson made a whole video about My Friends, talking about how he expects it could potentially win the Booker Prize. Oh, and My Friends just won the Orwell Prize for Political Fiction. So I think it has a very strong chance of being, at minimum, listed. So My Friends is about a boy who hears a short story on the radio. He becomes kind of obsessed with the story and the author. Then he goes off to university in Edinburgh. There he begins to experience, I guess, a coming of age where he begins to change. He begins to attend protest against the Gaddafi regime in London. Through all of these experiences, he gets injured at this protest. He then has this chance encounter with the man who wrote this short story that he heard years ago, and they develop a friendship. This is all just ahead of the Arab Spring. So the blurb says it's a devastating meditation on family and friendship and the ways in which time tests and frays these bonds. It's an achingly beautiful work of literature. It sounds fascinating. It sounds really good. And I'm very interested to read it, regardless if it makes it to the long list or not, but I think there's a very good chance that it will make it to the long list. My next heavy hitter prediction is The Road to the Country by Chigozie Obioma. Chigozie Obioma has been shortlisted for the Booker Prize twice, not once, but twice. So I feel like this is a fairly reasonable prediction. This particular book, I haven't read yet. I haven't read most of these. A sweeping, heart-racing, mystical novel about a university student in Lagos trying to save his brother and himself amid the chaos of Nigeria's civil war. A story of love, friendship, and personal triumph by the two. It sounds very, very good. It's set in Nigeria in the late 1960s, and it sounds like it's an epic story. I have never read anything by Chigozie Obioma. So next on my list of heavy hitters is Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright. Praiseworthy is a book that really hadn't been on my radar. I'm not sure why. It should have been. It's the winner of the Stella Prize, so Australian. Praiseworthy is described as being an epic set in the north of Australia, filled with the richness of language and scale of imagery for which Alexis Wright has become renowned. I've never read anything by Alexis Wright either. I'm excited to read Praiseworthy. I've heard that it's been compared to Mariana Enriquez, which, if that's the case, that was one of my favorite books from last year, Our Share of Night was, and so I'm very excited to read Praiseworthy regardless. But I would think it would be really wonderful if it made the list. The blurb reads, in a small town dominated by a haze cloud which heralds both an ecological catastrophe and a gathering of the ancestors, a crazed visionary seeks out donkeys as the solution to the global climate crisis and the economic dependency of the Aboriginal people. His wife seeks solace from his madness in following the dance of butterflies and scouring the internet to find out how she can seek repatriation for her Aboriginal Chinese family to China. One of their sons, called Aboriginal Sovereignty, is determined to commit suicide. The other, Tommy Hawk, wishes his brother dead so that he can pursue his dream of becoming white and powerful. This is a novel which pushes allegory and language to its limits, a cry of outrage against oppression and disadvantage, and a fable for the end of days. It sounds phenomenal. It has been listed on a lot of different prize lists. That would be so cool. I really want to read that as well. So actually I'm going to include this on my heavy hitters, and that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney has been snubbed by the Booker Prize for Conversation with Friends after she won the Costa Book Award for that one. But then she was subsequently longlisted in 2018 for Normal People. And I think that there's a very good chance that her new book coming out September 24th, so it would be eligible. And it's meant to be about chess, I believe, about a chess tournament or about two brothers. It says, aside from the fact that they are brothers, Peter and Ivan Kubek seem to have little in common. Peter is a Dublin lawyer in his 30s, successful, competent, and apparently unassailable. But in the wake of their father's death, he's medicating himself to sleep and struggling to manage his relationships with two very different women. So it's the story of these two brothers. It's a story about their relationships. It's about family. It's about romance. And I think there's a very good chance that Intermezzo will be included on the Booker Prize list. So those are really my heavy hitters that have been on the radar. I'm going to now get into the debut novels that I think could potentially find a spot on the long list. One of those is also a heavy hitter, and that is Blackouts, which won the National Book Award. I think that there's a lot of potential for this to be included on the list as well, because it's a bit experimental. It uses the technique of blacking out parts of the text as a narrative tool. It's about the erasure of gay lives. It's been very highly praised, so I think there's a good chance that it could be on the list. The next one, which I think could also be on the list, that is a debut novel that so many people have been talking about, and that's Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I just have a feeling that this will be on the list. Again, instinct, intuition. I keep seeing this book everywhere. So Martyr is about Iranian-American Cyrus Shams. He's an aspiring writer who, after graduation, sticks around his university. He was raised by his single father, Ali, a laborer in a poultry farm. Cyrus grieves the absence of his mother, and his mother, Roya, died on flight 655, just before he and his father had immigrated to America. But this is also a story about a friendship, because he becomes friends with Orchidea, who is a lesbian emigre artist based in New York. Orchidea is diagnosed with terminal cancer. She's opted to spend her last weeks as an exhibit in the Brooklyn Museum, and she discusses her mortality with the visitors at the museum. And she becomes a muse for Cyrus, because Cyrus has a book project where he's writing a series of vignettes about martyrs. So about people whose deaths transcend their lives. The conversations that they have form the basis of the novel. I've heard it's very intense and very, very good. I'm a little nervous to read it, but eventually I think I will be able to get into the right headspace. But I do think it stands a very good chance of possibly being nominated. Another debut novel that I'm including on my list is The Coast Road by Ellen Mirren. This is an Irish book. I like to include Irish predictions. They tend to do quite well. I talked about this one recently because it's on my July TBR. It's about a woman who returns to Ireland after the breakup of her marriage, and she's not able to see her child. It's the visits that she has with her child are being mediated by a neighbor named Izzy. And it's about the breakdown of her marriage, and Izzy's marriage is breaking down. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I haven't read it yet. I think it has, there's a possibility that it could be listed. It's getting a lot of buzz, that's for sure. The next book I haven't really seen very many people talking about on BookTube, and that is Blessings by Chukwuka Ibe. This is also a debut novel, and it's a novel about growing up in Nigeria. It's also a queer novel. It's about the story of Obifuna, who is on a journey of self-discovery. So what happens is his father, he observes his son with the apprentice in a romantic moment. With the apprentice to the family, a man named Aboy. He essentially decides that he's going to send his son to a seminary to basically pray the gay away. It's about Obufuna's experience in the seminary, and then eventually he does leave the seminary and he goes to university, and I think he is able to find himself. But I've heard that it's a very beautiful, very elegant, thoughtfully told story. I'm very, very curious to read it. I think it would be amazing if it was on the Booker Prize list. I really, really want to read it regardless, because it just seems like such... It sounds fantastic. It sounds really, really good. Okay, the next debut that I'm predicting, I don't know if it's really going to make the list, but I love the cover so much, I just wanted to talk about it again. I had talked about this book already in summer releases that were recommended by the Globe and Mail. I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below. This is also an Australian novel. So it's described as being an edgy black comedy set in suburbia about one woman's struggle to be free. When Winona Dalloway begins her day in the peaceful early hours before her children, that tiny tornado of little hands and feet, wake up, she doesn't know that by the end of it, everything in her world will have changed. On the outside, Winona is a seemingly unremarkable young mother, unobtrusive, quietly going about her tasks, but within is a vivid, chaotic self teeming with voices, a mind both wild and precise. It sounds very intriguing. The cover is fantastic. It's a bit of a wild card. It's a debut novel. I think it would be great to see it on the list. So the next three books I'm not so sure about. I've heard a lot of people talking about them on BookTube, and I think there's a possibility that they could be on the list, so they're more like my wild cards. The first one I'm going to talk about is Wellness by Nathan Hill. The only other person that I've seen talk about this book is Charlotte. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with my BookTube watching, so I haven't watched everyone's predictions videos, so I'm not sure if other people have predicted this one. I am reading this one for the BookTube prize in my Group B, so I can't say anything about what I think about the book until after I've submitted my rankings and we've moved on to the final. But I will say that it's this bit of a saga. It feels very prize-worthy in terms of the weightiness of the topics that it deals with. It's a story about a couple who are in a marriage and they've been in a very long relationship, and there are questions about modern life, there are questions about how to maintain their marriage, there are questions about how to maintain a quality of life, how to be well. It's, I think, very good material for the Booker longlist, so I think there's a very good chance it could be on there. Okay, so the next two books are both by female authors, and I've added them as my last two to the Booker Prize list. I'm not going to say that I hate these authors, but I haven't been very successful with the books that I've read by them. I've read one book from each of these authors, and neither time did I really love either of these books. I feel like they're very highbrow, and maybe so highbrow that I just can't connect with them. They're not books really for me, although one of them might be, we'll see. But I think there's a possibility that for that reason, because they're books that they're authors that I don't get along with all that well, there's a good possibility that they could be on the Booker long list, if you get what I'm saying. Because the Booker tends to have these types of authors. They tend to reward these types of books and these types of authors. So the first one is Parade by Rachel Cusk. If you've been around my channel for some time, you will know that I'm not a huge fan. I've only read one book by Rachel Cusk. It was the second place, and I did not enjoy my reading experience of that one. But I do think that the critics really love her, and the people who get her really love her. I think that she is well respected for what she is trying to do. Parade feels to me like kind of more of the same, but again, I haven't read it. I'll just give you a brief description. Again, it's about the one of the characters is an artist. So in the second place, one of the characters was an artist as well. It says, midway through his life, an artist begins to paint upside down. Eventually, he paints his wife upside down. He also makes her ugly. The paintings are a great success. In Paris, a woman is attacked by a stranger in the street. Her attacker flees, but not before turning around to contemplate her victim, like an artist stepping back from a canvas. So Parade is a story that confronts and demolishes the conventions of storytelling. It surges past the limits of identity, character, and plot to tell a true story about art, family, morality, gender, and how we compose ourselves. It does sound very interesting from the blurb, but again, my experience with Rachel Cusk will not lead me to read Parade anytime in the near future, if at all. But again, I think that there is a very good chance that her book could be selected for the Booker and be included on the Booker long list. And then in the same vein, I think a lot of readers who like Rachel Cusk probably also like Miranda July. So I will add All Fours by Miranda July to my predictions list. That's my last and final prediction. I did read the first Bad Man a long time ago when it first came out, and I didn't enjoy it that much. I remember just thinking it was weird. But to be fair, I don't really recall my reading experience, so I can't really weigh in completely on whether I like Miranda July or not. I think I was kind of on the fence. All Fours sounds a lot more promising to me personally as a book that I would enjoy. But again, it's definitely, Miranda July is definitely, I think, quite highbrow. So, you know, because she's an artist, because it's art, right? And this story is about a semi-famous artist who announces her plan to drive cross-country from LA to New York. I think the thing that appeals to me about this book is that it is about a woman who is kind of in her middle age. She's sort of trying to figure out a bit about who she is. And that really appeals to me. But the blurb reads, Miranda July's second novel confirms the brilliance of her unique approach to fiction. This is where I have issues. With July's wry voice, perfect comic timing, unabashed curiosity about human intimacy, and palpable delight in pushing boundaries, All Fours tells the story of one woman's quest for a new kind of freedom. Part absurd entertainment, part tender reinvention of the sexual, romantic, and domestic life of a 45-year-old female artist. All Fours transcends expectation while excavating our beliefs about life lived as women. So I do think that it's an interesting topic. It's a queer novel, so I think that that's always interesting. I'm not sure how much, like, I don't have a lot of experience with the Booker, so I'm not sure how much the Booker, I'm not really sure what the Booker's track record is with LGBTQ or queer novels, so I don't know, maybe it depends on who the judges are. Again, I haven't gone deeply into the research to really explore the judges and really explore their preferences the way some other brilliant booktubers have. I'm thinking of Ben, I'm thinking of Scott, but that was just my stab at putting together a predictions list for you. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm really excited to see when the list comes out how many I may have gotten right. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with some of my predictions, if you disagree with my predictions, if you think they're all eligible. If you notice one that isn't eligible, please let me know and correct me, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye for now. Observes him in a tryst, he gets blessings by Chukwuebuka. Blessings by Chukwuebuka. So people whose lives transcend, people whose deaths transcend, people whose deaths are chosen for eligibility and then for excellence as winners or being selected or for being yes. But I figured, why not? This is a really bad intro. I'm starting to have trouble like coming up with good intros. Can I have a slight edit? No. Again. Okay, enough about me.